Hello friends, so the last video for the Python beginner course is this. This is lab number 6, and what I believe is after watching all this video, you will get a clear understanding of the ABC of Python programming language. Then you can do any advancement in Python, which means you can learn advanced Python as well. And I will try my level best to make videos for that specifically. But for this course specifically, you will be able to understand the basics of or the fundamentals of Python programming. So lab number 6 is about introduction to user-defined functions. So those who are not aware about functions, so functions are basically set of code, which means you have to write your functions one time, then you can use it multiple times. So it's very similar to, like, let's take an example. There's a famous example when I was studying computer science. My professor used to give me that if you go to a hairdresser and you ask him to, give you a specific style, which means hello friends, so this is the last video of the course Python Beginners, and this video is about user-defined functions. So after completion of this video, you will be able to at least write Python coding in any of the IDE which you like the most. And after that, you will be able to understand the advanced programming as well. Once you complete this course, you will be able to write basic coding in Python language, and then gradually you can do projects and you can enhance it. So let's start. This video is about user-defined function. So user-defined functions, basically there are two types of functions in every programming language. One is predefined function and one is user-defined function. Predefined function means something that is already being defined by the programming language or already being defined by someone. Let's take an example. Python. There are some libraries in Python that are already invented by the person who invented Python. Like let's take an example about math library. So math library is already exist in Python. So these kind of things which are already exist in Python are predefined functions. Let's take an example. You have heard about the word of integer. So integer is basically a pre-designed function. If you will say dot append, it's a predefined function. So these are kind of a predefined functions. User-defined function means when you have to make a function, which means now it's my invention, it's my creation, I will make my own function. So how to make your user-defined function? So functions are basically very if you want to if you want to make a user-defined function, so you have to understand two things. One is returnable function and one is non-returnable function. Returnable function means if you pass a parameter to it, so you are expecting a reply from it, which means if I'm asking you what is the addition of 5 plus 2, so I'm expecting a reply from you that you will give me an answer 7. Then there is non-returnable function. Non-returnable function means if I'm giving you a number 5 and 2 and I am asking you to give the output to the person, not me. So if you're not returning something to me, then it's a non-returnable function. The best way to distinguish between a returnable function and non-returnable function is using the return command. So in functions, you have to follow three things. The very first thing is you need to create a function first of all using the def keyword, which is def keyword. Then you have to call a function and then function with arguments. So you have two possibilities. You can either make a function with zero arguments, which means you are not passing anything. Then you can make a function with arguments, which means you are passing a set of frame to it or something, a set of data to it. You can even pass a list, a dictionary to a function as well. So let's start this activity of functions. We'll make a new file, Python 3, and then I will write functions over here. Okay, so function is basically last lab. So I will start with the function. So let's take an example. I'm making a function of addition or subtraction. Let's make a very simple function. So I'm making a function of my own function of addition. So the very first thing you need to remember in your mind is the name of the function. So you have to give a unique name. Now let's take an example. My function name is my function purpose is addition. So what name I can give to my function? So let's take an example. I will write def, and the name of my function is add. So why I have given this name? Because I am expecting that add is the short form for addition. Okay, so I've written a name add. You can give any other name, it's completely suitable. Then you have to use a parenthesis. Now, if you don't want to pass any parameter to a function, so you can keep it blank. But let's take an example. I want to pass two numbers to the add parameter, okay, which means add function. So the first parameter or the first thing which I want to pass to my function is a, and the second thing I want to pass is b, which means I am expecting that the user will give me two numbers, and then it's my duty to add those two numbers and return to the user. So that's my function. So I will write over here return. I will write directly return a plus b. You can write this, or you can do one more step, that you can write c is equals to a plus b, and then you can return c. It's completely the same thing. It all depends that whether you are whether you are comfortable in writing that form or this one. So as I will press shift enter, so see there is a function that has been defined in my computer. So functions are defined locally. So which means my function will only work in my computer, your function will work only in your computer. So my functions is defined. Now the second and the most important thing is, after declaring a function, you have to use that function. How to use it? So let's make a one line of code. I will write, let's take an example, answer. The short form is ANS. Answer is equals to AD, and then I will pass two parameters inside it. The two parameters could be integer, could be float, but that they should not be strings, because of course strings can be added, but if there will be a case of subtraction or multiplication, so it will have given us an error. So I will write 2, 3. Now understand one thing. I have written 2 and 3 inside AD, which means 2 and 3 are the parameters or the arguments that have been passed to the functions. So I am expecting a reply that is 5. Now the 5 answer has been stored in answer, which is ANS. So I have to print the message. So I will write print, and then I will write ANS. So as I run this code, so you can see the answer is 5. Now understand the sequence of the workflow. First, I created a function. I expected that the user will give me two arguments. Why? Because my function has two arguments. If I am expecting three arguments, so my function should have the ability to accept three arguments. So let's take an example. Instead of 2, if I need to pass 3, so I have to write comma c, then I have to write plus c. And now instead of 2 and 3, I have to pass one more parameter, that was 5 or any other number. Now I forgot to declare my function. So whenever you do a change in your function, you have to rerun the cell. So rerun the first cell, then rerun the second cell. Now see the answer is 10, which means this is a kind of function which is returnable and it has some arguments inside it as well. Now let's let's see a function that do not have an argument. Now let's take an example. I'm defining a function, and the function name is greeting, okay, and it don't have any parameters, which means blank, no arguments, and I'm just writing print hello users, okay, and then I'm declaring that function, and then I'm using it. So I will write greeting round bracket. So see, that is how you use a blank function, which means you just have to directly write the function. That is all. This is basically an example of a function with no arguments, and it's also non-returnable. Now, how I assumed it is non-returnable? Because there is no return command. You can see there is return over here, but there is no return over here as well. Now let's make one more example, the same example def add, but let's make a subtraction function. So I will write the names subtraction kind of thing, okay, in which I have three parameters. Let's remove one, and instead of plus, I need to subtract it because my function is separate. But here I don't want to return the value. So instead of return, I will directly print the value inside the function. That's also possible. How to do it? First, you need a function known as subtraction. You have uh, you have two arguments in it, a and b. You have done a minus b. The answer would be c, and then you have printed the answer in the same function, not in the previous coding, like you basically write over here first AD, and then you are expecting a reply, and then you save that reply inside the ANS variable, and then you print it. Here you just have to directly write subtraction and then write two numbers 5, comma 6. So 5 minus 6 gives you -1. So this is basically the difference between functions. So let's repeat it again. So this is a function with arguments and returnable. This is a function with no arguments, non-returnable. This is a function with arguments but non-returnable. So this is how you make a functions. The functions could be, you can even pass a list to a function as well. But this is a beginner course, so we are not passing a list. We are just trying to make a function of our own. So let's go back to the menu. You can practice these codes as well and see it's my first name. So you can add first name with my surname. So plus that is concatenation. We already discussed it earlier. And same goes with this example. Okay. Now the second task is very important, and I would really appreciate you guys to do this on your own. That is practice your previous lab task using functions any2. So we have done 5 labs. Okay. So you can shift any lab to a function, which means you can ask user 2 numbers and you can make a function of a calculator in which you can return 4 values. Okay, this is also possible. So you have to implement functions on the previous labs which you have done so far. So I hope this course was very easy for you, because this is just a beginner level course. Once you watch all the videos, I can make a blind assurity that you will be able to write your first code in Python language. Now, the second step is we might launch an advanced course. You have to do that advanced course so that you can understand what actually programming is all about and what is basically the real-time use of programming. Up till now, you were just learning the basics of programming. So good luck and all the best. I hope this series was interesting for you, and thank you so much.